How's it going, everybody? Today we are going to be installing a mobile radio, ham radio for VHF and UHF in my 2023 Ford F-150 Lightning. We're starting here in the back because the first thing I'm going to set up is my antenna mount. I am going with the bulletproof diesel mount. This thing is an ungodly expensive, but everything we're going to talk about today should work out just fine if you are going to be trying to install something in a truck. Believe it or not, trucks are actually really easy to install radios into. It's almost like they were designed to be modular and have lots of entrance and access points for you to run wires either from the bed into the cab and from the cab up to the front where you will power your radio. So let's get started. All right, so this diesel power mount system basically replaces or goes in between the brake light housing, which allows you to connect an NMA mount, which is perfect for most mobile antennas. They make a dual-headed version, so there's one on each side, which if you had like an APRS transmitter and a VHF UHF radio, or you wanted to do GMRS on one side and VHF UHF on the other side, that would work too. I went with the single. Hindsight being 2020, I probably should have went with the dual, but this is not a cheap mount. Seriously, this is actually more than the radio I bought. First, we need to install the bracket itself, and then we're going to reattach, and there's apparently going to be some indentations on the brake light cover, and we're going to have to go in there with a file and file this out a bit. All right, step one, let's see what's behind this bad boy. Okay, there's a lot of connectors here. So let's disconnect the camera connector, and then the brake light connector. All right. And yeah, sure enough, there's a pathway into the cab right there here. We're gonna have to drop a bit of the headliner inside the cab to make this all work. So we're gonna go take a look at that now before we get to actually mounting up the bracket, which needs to actually screw in to the body of the vehicle. Not for the faint of heart on this part, but let's go find a spot for that antenna wire. That means we're likely going to have to come in from the C-rail along the kick plate and then up and under the front seat. At least that's what my mind is telling me. The advantage too of having the body underneath one of the front seats is that I can then add a speaker to it to add some better audio in the future. I've only had this truck like a month and the kids have already filthed it up. The good news is that Ford publishes pretty much all the diagrams that walk you through how to disconnect the interior paneling on all the truck. A Discord user who I forget your name right now, but I'm adding it below here. Thanks for sending them to me. It has made this a lot easier in trying to work this all out in my head, how I'm going to make this work. But I think we can probably, without much fuss, route the cable in and down and then just along the kick plate. And that should be all there is to it. At least I hope so. Unfortunately, there isn't a fantastic way to pull the fascia off other than to kind of give it a little bit tough love. It will slightly damage the tooth, the insert pieces, but it's a toothed gripper element that's on the chassis of the body here, so it should go back in fine, assuming you're not doing this like every weekend. All right, let's pull up the kick plate. Kind of already worked on this a little bit. And there are clips on this guy, so real positive retention into the two pillar legs. Let's get that guy back in there. Plenty of channel space. Actually, look at this. See, another reason why working on trucks is really, really easy. Look how much channel space you have to run coax through here. There's plenty of room to just run coax along the door frame. You see they've already done that for some wire bundle they have. Neatly done with the zip ties, all that. Pretty well thought out. All right, we've loosened the C-pillar panel. Now we got to figure out how to run the coax from about that midpoint along the C-panel and then down. The good news here is that you don't really have to take the headliner unit and fully drop it. You just need to be able to get your hand up under it so that you can pull the cable through and then fish it around and down and take up the slack. This is possibly not for the faint of heart, but there should be some Yeah, it was right there. Yeah, there it is. And you go all the way to the back. I can see it. Okay. I absolutely love... Oh. Come in a bit closer, won't you? I absolutely love this Vera tool caddy thing that I bought. I bought it. These are also not cheap, but boy howdy, do they work really well for this kind of stuff. What are you doing, Ben?
Looking at memes.
Looking at memes?
On YouTube.
It's kind of a big connector. Oh yeah. That's it. That was easy. I just have to get in and fish it out. Oh, it's right here. I found it. That was pretty good. Hey, I should just point out too. Where does it say? Let me see. DX Engineering made this coax. That's pretty cool. All right, so now we can fish it up along here. And I'm gonna go up and over the head. There we go, buddy. Pull it up and under. All right, so we need to come up and under and then get it. And there's actually no way to go around this trim, so I think we're just gonna come up and in. Look at that. Like it was meant to be there. That is indeed right. All right, now we just go around and make sure we got the weather stripping out of the way. And start pushing the pieces back in. Oh, there's the problem. All right, so the next phase here is we need to mount the bracket, which goes something like this. And we've got to do something a little wild. We're gonna have to use these two holes as a guide and drill into the body of the truck. That's the only part about this I'm not excited about. We gotta do what we gotta do for ham radio, right? All right, here we go. Oh, that's... Whew. We did it. Ooh. I did the thing. Ow. Now, get our light back here. Don't over torque these. You can crack the lens. About right there. I don't really have a better NMO mount other than this tram right now. So that's the one we're going to go with. For now. We'll be testing out NMOs in the future. Pick this up at TRW Swapmate. Okay, so here's the mount. Pretty much all done. Looks pretty good. I think the better installation spot for me is going to have the body of the unit underneath the front seat, assuming that I have enough space for it. Because we've got a mount here that I'm going to reuse this guy. This is a nice sturdy Lido mount for the head unit, and it won't get in the way of the folding desk because we can always, you know, move that out of the way. There's not actually a lot of space to put a head unit in the front of these modern trucks, including the Lightning with that huge front screen. So I think that's likely what we're going to have to do. So here is our next hurdle we have to get around for this install. How do we power this radio? This is where we enter into a bit of the non-standard. Putting a radio in an F-150 is not that big a deal. Everything from the cab to the bed is pretty much the same for all the late models, so everything you just saw me do with the antenna mount is going to be the same for all of you. This is where we take a bit of an off-ramp. Because this is the Lightning, the power system and power delivery of the 12-volt accessories are placed in different locations. I don't exactly know where the ground mount is to connecting the negative terminal, so we're going to have to take a look at that right now. This is all the stuff I normally have in my trunk. My go bags, emergency gear, first aid kits. I've added the... No, I'm just kidding. I've always had a fire extinguisher, but put it in the front just in case. Alright, so here is where things differ. Aside from it being a frunk, this is a trunk in the front of a truck. This is where the 12-volt... This is where the 12-volt battery connection is. It's literally a battery just chilling here. And so I could just easily route wires in somehow via the firewall, but then we're going to have to do something, I'm guessing, to, you know, make it so that we can distribute the power appropriately. I'm thinking about using one of these power junction boxes to take in the positive and then go to the ground somewhere, but I can't see it when I'm looking at this. So let's take a closer look. All right, interior of the frunk. So with the jumper cover off, and this is what you would have to take off if you wanted to jump an electric vehicle like this, and yeah, they do need jumping occasionally because those 12-volt accessory batteries, if that ever goes bad on you, that's almost always your problem. But if I took my power junction block and I mounted it like right there, this is the negative terminal to ground, so that would go right there, and the positive would sweep over to that guy, and then I could plug anything I want on the fuses here, which those green ones are 30 amps. So that's exactly what we want to do. The challenge though on all these mobile installs is that firewall, is getting through that firewall. I have to figure out the best way to do that, so I'm likely going to take some time and figure out the most efficient way without doing any damage, although sometimes you just got to pop a hole. Popping a hole in the firewall is not that big a deal. Just make sure you use a grommet that seals the outside so that the wires don't rub and take the insulation off and then eventually short your radio. And also I've got a live stream to get ready for, so the next time you see me in the next second will be days later. And of course we're going to do an HF radio install in the future, but just not yet. That's going to be another video.
That might be helpful. And it was interesting that a lot of people I hear on your show all the time.
To say that things have changed would be a drastic understatement. The last time you saw me, we were desiring to run the power line through the passenger footwell, through the firewall, and then eventually syncing up with the battery. That quickly proved impossible. The grommet that is there is like a hard plastic. It's not rubber. You can't really go through it. It's really, really difficult. I also found a video online that talks, that is an F-150 owner. I think it's a 2021. Doesn't matter. It's the same chassis, basically, that ran through the driver's side footwell up under here. So that meant that I rerouted all the feed line to the driver's side. The radio is now underneath the trucks, underneath the driver's seat, but we have a power issue. I need to figure out where to run the power. I fished a line through that grommet, so that is done. I have the power cable here that I have to get through said grommet. And then we have to run that junction box. I think I have a solution, but it's not gonna be perfect. Let's go ahead and snake that line. We're big caught in the grommet. Let's see if we can pull the wire through. It's really, really thick. Oh, I don't think it's gonna work. God, the hole's not big enough. Oh, it came through. It did it. Oh, I'm so happy. Here's the junction box. Here's your positive, here's your neutral. So I'm gonna install it somewhat like this, and then I'm gonna affix it in the back with some super heavy duty Velcro. I may pop holes here and just forever screw it in. In fact, that's likely what I'm gonna do, but I'm not gonna do that right now. We're gonna try these first. What do they say? Temporary solutions often become permanent. That is true. So let's start with this. Why am I mounting the distro box right by the power? Well, glad you asked. If there's a failure point, we want that fuse to pop immediately. And FYI, these are 30 amp fuses, both right here. This kit also has 60 amp, and I think these are 80 amp. Regardless, I'm gonna get some more 30 amps just so I have a bank of at least 4, which should be, I probably won't ever use them. But anyway, all right. So now we need to run the power line to one of these junction spots, and then we need to run the return to the jump spot that we talked about earlier. There's a couple of mounting spots here. Excellent. I am going to disconnect the battery though before we get started here. Okay. All right, the return. I don't know if this is gonna loosen. Let's see. Oh, it does. Wow. All right, this is a lot easier than I thought. Let me make sure. God, I hope that's tapped. I can't feel the other side. Lots of room though, I will give it that. All this back area, tons of room. Here's our positive line. We can now slide that back on. So we're safe. And I'm gonna tap in probably right here. So I'm gonna give it like that much space. Oh yeah, that's pretty sticky. Holy smokes, that gripped on fast. That is technically all the wiring done. I'm gonna go grab my Lido accessory box for mounting the arm with the head unit, and we'll test it all out. And then we'll do some final fitting, and we're done. All right, before we do our final checkout, thought it'd be wise to go ahead and just do a ham scan really fast on our antenna. Make sure we don't have any initial problems. All right, 2 meters, 1.08. 70 centimeters, 1.76, which is okay, that's fine. That's it. It's best on 2 meters though. So the antenna mount works. The antenna, I'll probably have to get a better one. So, sorry, spoiler, I jumped ahead a little bit. I had a neighbor come by. I'm gonna clean up the wiring on all this, but here we go. I'm likely gonna leave the 5100 on top because it's a little bit bigger.
To the post office and mail it. Just because it makes me feel better. But you know, talking about carrying cash.
All right, last step is gonna be get the 891 here, but that's gonna be a project for another day. But yeah, so far, so good. Little quiet on the speaker's a little quiet. I'm probably gonna have to upgrade it to an external speaker. Well, guys, that's gonna do it. Obviously, the rain was held off long enough for me to wrap this up, but I think rain's coming back in tonight, so I'm gonna wrap things up here, get everything cleaned up, close up shop, maybe drive a little around the neighborhood a bit to play with my new radio. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, again, obviously this is the Ford F-150 Lightning, but a lot of the same principles are going to apply to other F-150s, even other trucks. So post your questions. I'm happy to help you out. And if you enjoyed this, please subscribe. Take it easy, everybody. 73s.